There's a particular kind of morning that women rarely talk about. Not the busy ones, not the ones full of appointments and obligations. The quiet ones, the ones where you wake up before anyone needs anything from you, and for a few minutes, just you, the day hasn't started yet. The kettle is on. Steam is rising. Light is coming slowly through the curtains, and you're standing there in that thin space between night and day, and something moves through you that you can't quite name. Not unhappiness, not exactly. Something more like a question. What do I actually want my days to feel like now? If you've ever had that moment, standing in your kitchen in the early quiet, holding something warm, wondering if this chapter of your life could feel different than it does, then this video was made for you, not to tell you what to do, not to hand you a program or a plan, but to sit with you for a few minutes and talk honestly about the small things that quietly change everything. Today we're going through 10 daily habits that are genuinely transforming life for women after 60, not through discipline or reinvention, through something quieter and more sustainable than that. And I'll tell you now, 2 of the habits on this list surprised me when I first encountered them. One of them, which we'll reach toward the end, changes something that most women didn't even realize needed changing. Stay with me. Let's go through them together. And before we begin, if content like this feels made for you, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to her golden chapter, and turn on the notification bell. Every person who joins this community makes it a little warmer. Now, let's start. Habit 1. Begin your morning on your own terms. Most of us spent decades waking into urgency. The alarm, then the list. Who needs what? What's already late? What today is going to ask before you've even finished your first cup of anything? And for a long time, that pace felt like simply the cost of a useful life, the shape that caring for others takes. But here's something that becomes genuinely available after 60. The morning can be yours again. Not the whole of it, just the first quiet portion. That unhurried window before anyone asks anything of you. Picture this. The kettle has just finished. The house is still holding the hush of early morning. You sit, not with your phone, not with the news, not already composing your day, just with the warmth in your hands and the light arriving slowly across the floor. 20 minutes maybe. The world outside beginning to stir while you, for once, are not already ahead of it. Women who begin protecting this time often describe an unexpected emotional response. Something between relief and something that feels almost like grief, for all the mornings that were never theirs. But underneath both of those feelings is something steadier, a sense of return. Of finally being present at the start of your own day, rather than arriving breathless to it. What this quiet beginning actually does is set the tone for everything that follows. Not as a productivity strategy, as a way of entering the day as yourself, rather than as a function. Notice, sometime this week, whether your morning currently feels like something you're behind on before it's begun, or something you're gently opening. That difference is smaller than it sounds and larger than you'd expect. And the second habit builds directly on it, in a way that has nothing to do with effort and everything to do with attention. Habit 2. Move gently, move daily. Let's set something aside right away. This is not about fitness, not about weight, or pace, or meeting any standards set by anyone other than you. Moving your body daily after 60 is about something more fundamental than all of that. It's about staying in contact with yourself. Returning each morning to the simple, grounding fact that you are a living, physical person, and that your body is not just a vehicle for getting things done. It is you. It deserves some portion of your daily attention. For some women, this looks like a walk through a neighborhood still cool from the night, the sound of their own footsteps the only real company. For others, it's stretching slowly in a warm room, feeling where things are stiff, breathing into it without fighting. Some women put on a song they've always loved and simply move in their kitchen, not exercising in any formal sense, just inhabiting their body for a few unhurried minutes. One woman described it this way. She said that for most of her adult life, her body had been primarily a workhorse, the thing that carried her through tasks. When she began moving gently and intentionally each morning, nothing ambitious, nothing disciplined, it was the first time she felt that she and her body were genuinely, quietly on the same side. That image stayed with me. There's a difference in how an afternoon feels when you've moved your body earlier in the day. Something less scattered in the chest, something more inhabited about the hours. The day becomes something you're living in, not just passing through. The next habit takes that feeling somewhere most women don't think to look, and it requires nothing more than a willingness to step outside. Habit 3. Let yourself be outside. When did you last go outdoors without needing to? Not to run an errand, not to get somewhere specific, just outside. Standing in a garden for a few minutes, noticing what's changed since yesterday. Sitting on a step while the morning does what morning does. Walking somewhere slowly with no destination worth tracking. For many women, the honest answer is longer ago than they'd prefer. There is something that happens in open air that nothing inside a building can replicate, and most of us know this already, in our bodies, even when we forget to act on it. Natural light landing on your face, the particular quality of outdoor quiet, which is never actually silent. After rain, that smell that seems to clear something in the chest along with the air. Sitting outside after rain is one of those experiences that is nearly impossible to explain to someone who hasn't paused long enough to feel it. The world looks briefly clean. The breath goes a little deeper than usual, and something in you, something that has been held, managed, and quietly braced, exhales. Research on time spent outdoors is consistent and clear. Even 15 minutes changes measurable stress markers. But the research is almost beside the point, because the body already knows this. The invitation here is simply to stop postponing what you already know to be true. Some women have built small, unremarkable rituals around this. They water their plants in the morning and let themselves stay outside a few minutes longer than necessary. They stand on a step between tasks and look at the sky for a moment, not because anything is happening up there, but because looking up is itself a kind of rest. What would it feel like to give yourself that deliberately this week, not as exercise, not as productivity, just as a quiet act of being in the world? The fourth habit is different from these first three. It asks something that takes real courage, even though it looks gentle from the outside. Habit 4. Guard what you let in. There's a particular kind of tiredness that doesn't come from doing too much. It comes from absorbing too much. From carrying things that were never quite yours to carry. From conversations that leave you quieter than they found you. Not in a peaceful way, but in the way of someone who has given something away without meaning to. From beginning the morning with other people's noise before you've heard your own. After 60, something shifts in how clearly you can see this. Not as a complaint, as information. Protecting your peace doesn't require dramatic changes or difficult confrontations. It's mostly made of small, quiet decisions, ones that accumulate into something that changes the entire quality of your days. Choosing not to turn the news on until you're actually ready to receive it. Ending a phone call that's circling something without resolution. Saying once, clearly and without extensive explanation, not today. Many of us were taught, implicitly, consistently, over many years, that managing other people's discomfort was part of our role. That our own inner weather was something to work around rather than something worth attending to. That insisting on peace was, somehow, selfish. Here's what many women discover after 60. The opposite is true. The women who protect their peace are often more genuinely present with the people they love, not less. They have more to offer because they aren't quietly depleted before the day has reached noon. Something worth considering. What in your current daily life reliably takes more than it gives? You don't have to solve it right now. Just notice whether the question has an immediate answer. Because the habit most women underestimate is still ahead of us in this list. And that one, when we reach it, has a way of making this one make even more sense. But first, one of the most quietly pleasurable habits on this entire list. Habit 5. Follow your curiosity somewhere new. There is a particular kind of aliveness that comes not from accomplishing something, but from being genuinely interested in something. Not useful interest, not interest in order to. Just the pure, slightly childlike pleasure of following a thread somewhere it wants to go. Further than you planned, longer than seemed reasonable, simply because you found yourself wanting to know more. Your brain does not stop forming new connections after 60. It continues to adapt and grow in response to what you ask of it. And one of the most generous things you can give it, and yourself, is the freedom to be curious about something for no practical reason whatsoever. Maybe it's a language that has always sounded beautiful to you, that you never had time to even approach before now. A period of history that keeps returning to your thoughts uninvited. A specific craft you watched someone do once and filed away without meaning to. A branch of science that makes the world feel simultaneously more complex and more magnificent. One woman in her late 60s had always been quietly drawn to astronomy. She'd assumed that particular door had closed. Too technical, too late, too much to learn. She started watching short videos on quiet evenings, not studying, just following her interest wherever it led. A few weeks later, she found herself stepping outside on clear nights and looking up at the sky differently. Not as background, as something she was beginning to have a relationship with. She said she hadn't felt that particular sensation, that mix of smallness and wonder and deep engagement, since she was a child encountering the world for the first time. That feeling doesn't have an expiration date. It's been waiting for you to circle back to it. What have you always been quietly curious about that you've never quite given yourself permission to explore? Halfway through, and worth noticing something, not one of these habits has asked you to change who you are. Every single one has asked only that you bring more of yourself to the life you're already living. The next habit goes deeper into that, and it's the one that changes the texture of everything around it. Habit 6. Choose relationships that choose you back. After 60, something quietly clarifies. The relationships maintained mostly by proximity or long habit, not unkind, not unpleasant, but not deeply nourishing either. You begin to see them with a kind of gentle honesty that wasn't as available before. And what rises to the surface of your attention, what you find yourself genuinely treasuring, are the connections that leave you feeling more yourself than before you arrived. The friend who doesn't try to fix what's hard, who simply stays present in it with you. The woman you've known for years whose company feels, immediately, like putting on something comfortable and familiar. The person who makes you hear your own laugh and be briefly surprised by the sound of it. These relationships are not luxuries. Science is clear about this. Real, mutual, unhurried human connection is among the most powerful protective forces we have access to. It affects memory, sleep, resilience, physical health, and the quiet but essential sense that your life is witnessed by someone who actually knows you. And yet, many women in their 60s confide something they didn't expect to feel. A loneliness that has no obvious explanation, not isolated exactly, but somehow less deeply connected than they imagined this chapter would feel. If that resonates, don't move past it quickly. That feeling is not weakness, it is clarity, it is worth following. When did someone last make you feel genuinely seen, not managed, not helped, but seen? And when did you last give that gift to someone else? The next habit is quieter and more internal than this one. But it builds something you can feel. And the habit after it, habit 8, is the one I mentioned at the beginning, the unexpected one. We're almost there. Habit 7. Feed yourself like someone you love. We are leaving the word diet entirely out of this conversation. It doesn't belong here. What belongs here is a quieter question. When did you last nourish yourself with the same care you'd give to someone you were feeding with love? There is a pattern many women recognize when they hear it named. Reaching the end of a day and realizing they've eaten standing at the counter, or between tasks, or whatever was fastest, not because food wasn't available, because sitting down to a proper meal just for themselves felt like more occasion than was justified. Like the full effort was for other people. Like they received the simplified version of their own care. Picture instead an evening where you've made something you genuinely wanted. Something that took a little thought, a little time. You sit at the table, not the counter, with a glass of something and the evening light coming in through the window, and you eat slowly enough to actually taste it. And for those few minutes, there is nothing else required of you. That is not indulgence. That is a form of deep self-respect made visible. And it changes something, not dramatically, not all at once, but it signals something to the whole of you. I am worth this kind of care. The transition from feeding everyone else first to genuinely feeding yourself, emotionally, literally, daily, is one of the real hallmarks of this chapter done well. Habit 8. Spend time with your own thoughts. Here it is, the one most women don't see coming. This is not about journaling in the way the word sometimes sounds, disciplined, structured, virtuous. It's about something simpler and stranger and more valuable, the practice of actually listening to yourself. There is a particular kind of drift that sets in when we move through days without ever genuinely checking in. You're present for everything around you. But underneath the motion, things accumulate unchecked. Feelings that haven't been named, quiet longings that haven't been acknowledged. Small griefs that were set aside when they arrived because there was always something more pressing, and were never quite returned to. Over time, without noticing quite when it began, you can feel slightly distant from yourself. Still functional, still present for everyone else. But somehow not fully at home in your own life. 10 minutes in the evening, not scrolling, not watching, not managing anything, with something to write in or simply the quiet to think in, changes this. You might finish a sentence, what I actually needed today was. You might simply sit with the events of the day long enough to notice how they made you feel. You might do nothing more structured than be still with yourself while the last of the light fades through a window. Some women come back to old journals from earlier years and read them slowly, not with sadness, but with a kind of warm, surprised recognition. I remember her. That was me. And then they return to today's pages with something that functions like gratitude for the distance traveled. That is what consistent self-reflection accumulates into. Not answers. A deepening relationship with the person you've been becoming all this time. The next habit builds on this in a way that is lighter, more immediate, and brings something back that many women didn't realize they'd been missing. Habit 9. Make room for what delights you. This one sounds simple. It isn't, for many of us, quite as simple as it sounds. Because somewhere in the middle of long and genuinely full lives, many women quietly lost track of what actually delights them. Not what relaxes them, not what seems appropriate to enjoy at this stage. What genuinely, personally, almost privately lights something up, makes time disappear, makes the room feel brighter, makes them hear their own laugh and be glad it exists. The invitation here is not to schedule joy or optimize for happiness. It's to notice what you've been quietly postponing and stop postponing it. It might be a painting, though you haven't touched it in years, a garden project you keep meaning to begin, a piece of music that opens something in your chest every time you hear it, a friendship that makes you funnier than you thought you still were, an afternoon with a book so absorbing that you look up from it genuinely startled by how much time has passed. It might be something smaller still, buying yourself flowers at the market on a Tuesday because they were beautiful and you walked past them, sitting outside on a warm evening with nothing required of you, finding an old photograph and letting yourself stay with it, not efficiently, not briefly, but for as long as the memory wants to unfold. These things are not rewards. They are not earned at the end of a productive enough day. They are how a woman signals, daily and quietly, that her own happiness belongs in her own life. The final habit ties every single one of these together, and it's the simplest of the 10. Habit 10. End each day by looking for what was good, not performance. Not a list you compose because you feel you should be more appreciative. Real looking. The kind where you sit at the end of your day, perhaps in the quiet of an evening that has finally settled, the house soft around you, and genuinely search for what was good in the hours just past. The way the afternoon light came through a particular window at a particular angle, and you happened to catch it. Tea that tasted exactly right. A sentence in a book that said something you needed to hear. The garden looking like itself in the late afternoon. A phone call that made you laugh more than you expected. On the hard days, this practice asks more of you. On the hard days, it matters most. Here is what consistent gratitude actually does over time. It trains your attention, not to ignore difficulty, not to perform contentment, but to see more of the whole picture. And when you can see more of the whole picture, the ordinary days, the unremarkable ones, the Tuesdays with nothing significant planned, begin to reveal themselves as something worth being present for. The light on the wall, the warmth of the cup, the evening silence after a long enough day. These have always been there. This habit simply teaches you to arrive in them. 10 habits. And not one of them asks you to become someone you're not. Each one simply asks the same quiet thing in a different form, to bring your own life some portion of the attention you have always given outward. To tend to your mornings, your body, your peace, your curiosity,